Please welcome to the stage Bob Woodruff from ABC News, Peter Fearnhead of the African Parks Network, and Rob Walton of the African Parks Foundation of America.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having the chance to do this, I must say. But this is Peter Fearnhead, who is the one who runs the African Parks, and of course, Rob Walton, who also the former retired chairman of the Walmart. And this is a topic that you have been doing inside your heart, for so long. But sometimes as a reporter, I always like to start with the lead. This morning, I read the news that now you just announced that there's a $1 billion initiative to try to deal what's happening in Africa and the Africans' conservation of scale. Tell me, if you could, both of you, what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what's been done successfully so far.
Thanks very much, Bob. So we as African Parks, we're an organization that partners with governments across Africa to help them manage their protected areas, so effectively manage their large pieces of nature. And we can only do that if they are committed to the cause, and all African governments have signed up to the Kunming-Montreal Agreement, so they're very committed to the 20 by 30 commitment. And that's what we do. We help governments to be able to do that. As an organization, we're managing 22 protected areas across the continent in partnership with 12 governments. So knowing a little bit about the terrain, the continent, and the task at hand, that's what our commitment is. We're committing to make sure that we commit to the continent of Africa $1 billion to be able to help make that Montreal Agreement a reality. And we're proud to be able to do it, and we're proud to be able to partner with them in doing it.
That's one of the topics we want to talk about. That's the public appeal to that, and then we're talking also about the private support of what's happening over there. And I know, Rob, you have been doing this. I know that you helped to start this foundation 20 years ago. Give me an idea of why it is that Africa has such an important part in the world to do exactly what you're doing in terms of conservation.
Well, it's great to be here in the first place, and thank you, Bob. The African Parks Network has a goal of running 30 parks by the end of the decade, and that's where that aspiration is. Those parks are large landscapes. They contain a significant portion of the world's biodiversity, spectacular landscapes. But an important element of it is the benefit to local communities that the security of a well-managed park provides, whereas if a park's not managed, it can lead to bad people occupying it, sometimes a training ground for revolutionaries in a number of places. So it's a real benefit to us all to have these parks well managed, and there's tremendous demand for it too. Governments want African parks to take the parks, so the key is for us to raise the funding from whatever sources we can to support it.
I think that's an important point, is that every agreement we have is because government have asked us to get involved and to manage that area for them. And their commitment to conservation, their commitment to nature, to biodiversity conservation is literally unparalleled. But they are saying to us, and they're saying to the international community, we need help. And it's our job to help. So you need the willingness from government, you need the ability to execute on the ground, and then you need the financial wherewithal to be able to do it. And when you pull those three things together, it's incredible what can be done. And the numbers of people that benefit out of those ecosystems. I often say that when things go wrong in nature, when there's a climate crisis, it's nature that basically is the underpin to people's well-being, to their safety and their security. And as much as the international community might do a great job and the various organizations out there, nature does a way, way better job. So the more that we can actually look after these areas for them, these keystone areas, the more that I think local people can benefit from it.
You know, I told you that for Hulu and Disney Plus, I just finished a series called Last Lands, which is about the parks around in the underdeveloped countries. And the people that we met there, the locals we met there, is they all said that if they didn't have this kind of support from outside, the organization that we were over there with and the NGOs, they don't think they could have saved the areas that are being saved right now, the ones that are existing untouched land. Is that pretty much the same experience that you've got? Is that, I mean, all of us want to do something. I think it's also true that we have to do something, or it probably wouldn't happen.
Yeah, we call it the agreements that we get from governments is basically the de jure, the legal framework to make these things happen. But it only happens on the ground with the support of local people. And when local people understand and see the benefit of those ecosystems to them, and by having them properly managed, well looked after, then they completely buy into that. And maybe it's just a specific point that's worth mentioning. Nature in Africa doesn't just happen. It doesn't look after itself. If it isn't being looked after by professional management with the support of local people, don't expect it to be there in the future.
We've identified 150 landscapes that we call keystone landscapes that are similar, including the ones managed by African Parks across Africa, and those, the management of those, maybe 2/3 of them are not well managed. So there's a real challenge ahead of us to address how we're going to manage that, how we're going to get it done. Peter, though, is in the process of setting up a school in Kigali, in Rwanda, well, near a park in Rwanda, that will educate people to run the parks, which are that kind of talent is in short supply, and you're doing something about it.
Yeah, and that's essential because in managing these protected areas, you've got to have the skills, you've got to have the capacity. And because there hasn't been a huge investment in nature conservation on the continent, that capacity literally doesn't exist. So if we don't start to address that as an issue and start to create that capacity, we can't expect it to happen on its own. So yeah, this initiative, which in fact Rob is also very kindly supporting to be able to make happen, is a critical part of the long-term solution in terms of creating sustainable management into the future.
We talk about that we'd be losing species, we would lose the beauty of these places that all of us want to visit. How much of it is your most important things, to save the animals, to save the beauty, maintain what we need to absorption of CO2, for example? And do you think you have a feeling, which I think we always do, that some of these parts of the world, a lot of us in the United States didn't really be so engaged in it or care about it enough because it was a faraway place, but now it's an impact on us here in our own backyard. Yeah. How much more support and how has it changed because of that as a major important issue of saving the land?
If the world is serious about the conservation of biodiversity, it has to be serious about Africa. 25% of the biodiversity of the world is in Africa. And what happens there, matters. It affects everyone else. So the more that we're able to make people aware of the situation, and to be frank about it, there's some real challenges there that have to be overcome and have to be addressed. But what is so important is that they can be addressed. Where there's the will, a political will, where there's a social will in terms of a license to operate at a local level, where you've got your expertise to be able to manage, and where you couple that with the financial resources, honestly, and even in the most difficult circumstances and some of the most challenging countries on the continent, success is possible. And we see that, and that's why we're making this commitment, because we need to scale it. We can't be happy with what there is. Right. We need to scale the solutions. We need to be able to make it happen at a greater level, because the more we do so, the more that we conserve for global society, and the more that local people on the ground benefit from that process.
I just read the numbers, but is it 49 million acres of land that you're now helping to manage? That's about 59% of all of the U.S. national park land, the size of almost 60% of our entire amount of lands. which makes it, I guess, that's a scale that's gigantic. What's the government's support of this? Is there any against it? Are there any fights, or they all want it?
No, they
Yeah.
I'll take that one, Rob.
Oh, absolutely.
We can only do what we do because we have the support from governments. So every single contract that we have, whether it's been 20 years old or whether it's 5 years old, every single one that we are concluding at the moment is because governments want that to happen. They want to be part of the solution. And it's our responsibility as the international community and as a professional conservation organization to be part of that solution. The worst thing that can happen is for us to be able to say 20 years from now, now we're ready to be able to help Africa and to be able to help governments. We need to be able to help them today because they're asking for that.
You know, another great thing that Peter and African Parks is doing is developing not new, but small NGOs, supporting small NGOs in what we sometimes call an incubator program, but actually providing expertise and consulting and hopefully some resources to NGOs managing maybe 1 or 2 of these protected areas, because, like I say, there's 90 of them that need to be managed and are not well managed. And you know, one organization obviously cannot do, it shouldn't do all of that. So it's really important to develop more capacity in the whole sector.
I mean, there's so much pessimism about what's happening in places like this, in this battle that we've covered. And it sounds like you have a lot of optimism about what is being done and what can be done. If you have anything specific that you would like to have right now for people who want to help.
Well, we've announced this $1 billion commitment. We know that we need to be able to do that because that's what's required and is what we can do. What it requires, though, is people to become part of that solution. We can't do it on our own. We need people that are in this audience that are elsewhere to be able to get onto that journey with us, to build those partnerships, build those coalitions in order to be able to make it happen. If I can use one very specific example, we've just started getting involved in South Sudan, a country with tremendous challenges. And we've been involved now for about 2 years, having done all of the surveys, all of the work in order to be able to start getting an understanding of this landscape. It's the single biggest migration of large wildlife in the world. We're talking about 6 million animals. That's 3 times as many animals as there are in the Serengeti Masai Mara ecosystem. And yet it's something where no one's aware of it. No one's aware of how does this system work? How does it function? What needs to be managed in order to be able to make sure that it's there in 10 years' time, 20 years' time? And those are the kinds of opportunities that exist. So when things like that happen, it's difficult not to be optimistic.
Yeah, I told you, it was the most beautiful video I've ever seen of migration, so you should watch it. Nobody knows about South Sudan being the area for that. So,
another big challenge that you've taken on is the acquisition of a rhino farm that was about to be dispersed with 2,000 southern white rhino in South Africa. That's 15% of the world population, and over 10 years you're going to distribute them out to appropriate places across the continent, and that's a big undertaking and a real challenge and exciting. I have to mention, too, that a great thing about these organizations is the opportunity to go visit and see. You've just been in the field. I've just been in South Sudan and DRC. Getting to see these places is just amazing, and developing tourism for them is a significant opportunity as we go down the road.
Yeah, I was going to mention that about tourism as one of the ones that gets a lot of support locally, because this opens the place up to be used. I think it's a lot of people around the area don't really use it, but they could if there's tourism. Is that a big positive feedback from people because of that reason of saving the tourism or created the tourism?
It absolutely is, and people often think that tourism is for very wealthy foreigners, particularly from America, from Europe. It's not. We have more tourism that is domestic tourism from the countries that are wanting to come and visit and enjoy their own natural resources and to see the wonders and be able to say, wow, this is South Sudan, or wow, this is Rwanda, wow, this is Zambia. And that's fantastic, because you start to build the the group of people, the social support for looking after their own natural assets, and then our job will be done.
Well, that's a good ending for it. You know, I don't think I've ever done an interview or a speech for only 15 minutes. You people are so lucky out there. No one's ever bitched about being too short, only too long. So we just hit 0 right now. So I just want to thank you all so much for everything. Thanks for everybody here for doing it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bob.
Thank you. Good to see you so much.
Thank you, Rob. Rob?